Many people think you have to be loud or outgoing to be a good leader. We're told that confidence means speaking up first, making small talk, or being the center of attention. But what if you don't have to pretend to be someone else to lead well? What if being quiet, thoughtful, and steady is not a weakness, but a real strength? If you're tired of forcing yourself to act like an extrovert, or if you feel drained by trying to fit into a noisy world, this book is for you. Introverted Leaders: How to Leverage Being an Introvert is for anyone who prefers listening over talking, thinking things through before acting, and building real, deep connections instead of just making a lot of contacts. This book will show you how your natural habits, like careful listening, clear thinking, and genuine empathy, can help you lead with real impact. You'll learn how to speak up in a way that feels comfortable, build trust with your team, handle public speaking without fear, and find a path to success that fits who you are. You'll read about real leaders who made a difference, not by being the loudest, but by being honest and consistent. Each chapter gives you simple steps you can use right away, whether you want to run better meetings, connect with people, or manage your energy to avoid burnout. Leadership is not about being the most talkative person in the room. It's about helping others move forward, making things clearer, and building trust, sometimes by saying less but meaning more. You don't have to fix your introversion. You just need to use it in the right way. Let this book be your guide. Start here and learn how to lead by being even more of yourself. Chapter 1: The Quiet Edge. You're in the meeting. Again. The loud voices dominate. Again. Someone pitches an idea you analyzed 3 weeks ago and dismissed for reasons they haven't even considered. You see the flaws, you see the risks, you know the better path, but the moment to speak passes. The decision gets made, and you walk out knowing you could have changed the outcome, if only you'd said something. This isn't about being shy. It's not about lacking ideas or competence. It's about a fundamental mismatch. You're wired one way, and the leadership world expects another. You recharge in solitude while the culture rewards always-on energy. You think before you speak, while snap judgments get mistaken for decisiveness. You build trust through depth, while visibility goes to those who perform loudest. And every day, that gap costs you. Here's what this chapter will do. It will name the real problem, show you what happens if you keep ignoring it, and give you a clear picture of what changes when you stop fighting your nature and start leveraging it. The mismatch that's killing your impact. The modern workplace worships a specific leadership archetype: charismatic, extroverted, always visible, endlessly energized by people. Open offices, back-to-back meetings, brainstorms that reward the fastest talker, performance reviews that measure executive presence by how much you dominate a room. If you're introverted, this environment doesn't just tire you, it actively mutes your strengths. Your ability to listen deeply gets mistaken for passivity. Your careful analysis gets labeled as overthinking. Your preference for meaningful one-on-ones over loud networking events makes you seem not a team player. You're not failing because you lack talent. You're failing because you're trying to lead using someone else's operating system. And here's the brutal part. The more you try to fake extroversion, the worse it gets. You force yourself into constant visibility and your energy crashes. You mimic the loud leader's style and it feels hollow. People sense the performance. Your confidence erodes. You start believing the story that leadership just isn't for people like you. But there's an invisible ceiling you can't see yet. You're often the smartest person in the room, the one who spots the pattern, connects the dots, sees 3 moves ahead. Yet you stay quiet. You wait for the right moment that never comes. Others notice your silence and draw the wrong conclusion. You're not interested, not ready, not leadership material. Opportunities pass to people with half your insight, but twice your volume. And year after year, that gap compounds. What happens when you keep playing this game? Let's be clear about where this road leads. First, burnout. Not the dramatic kind where you collapse, the quiet kind. You wake up tired, work feels like a grind, you avoid opportunities because you're already running on fumes. The joy drains out. You become numb, cynical, just going through the motions. You tell yourself it's temporary, but months turn into years. Second, your career stalls. You watch less capable people get promoted because they're louder. You get typecast as the reliable executor, the person who does great work but never drives the vision. You're stuck in the same role while peers leap ahead. And the worst part? You know you could do their jobs better. But knowing doesn't matter when you're invisible. Third, your self-respect erodes. You sit in meetings watching bad decisions get made. You stay silent. You tell yourself it's not worth the fight, but deep down, you're just afraid. The bitterness builds. You resent the loud voices. You resent yourself for staying small. And every time you choose silence, your future shrinks a little more. Here's the truth you need to hear. Waiting to be noticed doesn't work. Staying passive means your environment shapes you by default. And not choosing is still a choice, one that leads to regret, not growth. What this book will give you. By the time you finish this book, 3 things will have shifted. First, you'll have a clear map of your introverted strengths, not vague affirmations. Specific traits, your ability to listen without interrupting, to reflect before reacting, to build deep trust over time. You'll separate these real strengths from the shame-based stories you've been telling yourself. And you'll write a simple, honest description of your natural leadership style, one that fits you, not some fantasy version of a leader. Second, you'll build a personal energy and leadership blueprint. You'll map when you're sharpest during the day and week. You'll identify 1 or 2 leadership arenas where your wiring gives you an edge. Maybe one-on-ones, maybe strategy, maybe written communication. And you'll draft a basic weekly rhythm that respects your energy patterns instead of fighting them. Third, you'll make a decision. You're done faking extroversion. You'll commit to experimenting with quiet-based strategies. You'll choose one upcoming situation, a meeting, a presentation, a decision, where you'll lead in a way that suits you. And you'll define what success looks like in that moment. Clarity, calm, contribution. Not performance, not applause, just real impact. The path forward. This book is built in a specific order for a reason. You'll start with energy mastery, because burned-out leaders can't execute any strategy well. You'll learn to see introversion as energy economics, not a personality defect. You'll track what drains and recharges you, then use that data to redesign your schedule and commitments. Next comes quiet leadership. You'll redefine leadership away from charisma and toward clarity and trust. You'll craft a quiet leader identity that aligns with your wiring, then practice small visible acts that fit this identity. Then deep thinking. You'll turn your tendency to reflect into structured decision-making, not rumination. You'll use written thinking to sharpen strategy and reduce bias. You'll build simple decision rules to move from idea to action. After that, powerful communication and visibility. You'll use listening, questioning, and writing as core leadership tools. You'll prepare intentionally for key meetings and presentations. You'll pair quiet presence with sharp, concise contributions. Finally, people, teams, and sustainable success. You'll build high-trust relationships through one-on-ones and small groups. You'll design complementary teams that amplify your strengths. And you'll define sustainable, introvert-friendly success metrics so you can keep growing without burning out. Energy first because it's your foundation. Identity next because tactics only stick when they fit who you are. Strategy before communication because powerful words come from clear thinking. And relationships last because leadership is relational, not solo performance. Winners and losers. There are 2 ways to respond to being an introverted leader. The loser attitude. Leaders are loud. I'm not, so I'm out. These people cling to stereotypes as excuses to stay small. They hide behind "that's just how I am" instead of learning new skills. They criticize louder leaders instead of outperforming them in depth. They stay stuck. The winner attitude. My quiet nature is an edge. These people view introversion as an asset to deploy, not a flaw to hide. They take radical ownership of their growth instead of blaming culture. They treat each interaction as a rep to refine their quiet leadership style. They win. And then there's the turning point attitude, the one you need right now. I'm done choosing between myself and success. You decide you'll no longer trade authenticity for approval. You commit to deliberately practicing quiet strategies for 6 to 12 months. You measure yourself by progress and courage, not by volume. Proof it works. Bill Gates built Microsoft not through charisma, but through relentless focus and deep thinking. He used think weeks, solo retreats where he read, reflected, and planned strategy. His leadership style was quiet, deliberate, and grounded in preparation, and it worked. Rosa Parks didn't give a fiery speech. She simply refused to move. One calm, quiet act of conviction ignited a movement that changed a nation. Her leadership wasn't loud, it was unshakable. Abraham Lincoln led the country through its darkest crisis with introspection and careful deliberation. He wrote to think. He paused before deciding. He stayed calm when others panicked, and history remembers him as one of the greatest leaders who ever lived. Your quiet nature isn't the problem. The belief that you must become someone else to lead, that's the problem. And the next chapter will show you exactly where to start, by mastering the one resource that determines everything else, your energy. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to Grow to the Top and activate notifications to receive more self-improvement tips that will supercharge your growth. And make sure to give this video a thumbs up and share it with your friends. It really helps the channel grow. Thank you for your support. Chapter 2, Energy Mastery. You finish a day of back-to-back meetings and feel like you've been hit by a truck. Your colleague, the one who talked nonstop for 6 hours, bounces out energized, ready for happy hour. You can barely form a sentence. You go home, collapse, and wonder what's wrong with you. Nothing's wrong with you. You're just running on a different fuel system. Think of it this way. Extroverts are like solar panels. Social interaction charges them up. The more people, the more energy. Introverts are like rechargeable batteries. Social interaction drains the charge. Solitude and depth restore it. Neither system is better. They're just different. But here's the problem. The entire work world is designed for solar panels. And if you're a battery trying to operate like a solar panel, you're going to burn out. This chapter is about understanding your energy system so well that you can design your life around it, not accommodate it, not apologize for it, design around it. Because when you do, something remarkable happens. Your energy stops being a weakness and becomes a strategic advantage. Your battery is everything. Every decision you make, every conversation you have, every presentation you deliver, all of it draws from the same source, your mental and emotional energy. When that battery is full, you're sharp, calm, and effective. When it's drained, you make sloppy decisions, miss social cues, and say things you regret. The mistake most introverted leaders make is treating energy like an emotion they should be able to control through willpower. I should be able to handle this. I just need to push through. Everyone else seems fine. But energy isn't about toughness. It's about physics. You can't out-willpower a drained battery any more than you can out-willpower an empty gas tank. And here's what makes it worse. When you ignore your energy patterns, you show up at your worst exactly when it matters most. You schedule the big presentation at the end of a draining day. You take the important call right after 3 hours of meetings. You try to make a critical decision when you're already running on fumes. Then you wonder why you froze, stumbled, or said yes to something you should have declined. The hidden cost isn't just exhaustion. It's that you start associating leadership with suffering. Every visible moment becomes something to dread. Every opportunity feels like a threat to your remaining energy. You begin avoiding the very situations that could advance your career, not because you can't do them, but because you can't afford the recovery time. Meanwhile, leaders who understand their energy become reliable anchors. They show up consistently, calm and clear-headed. They don't have dramatic highs and lows. They don't crash and disappear for days. Their steady presence builds trust. And over time, that consistency compounds into influence that sporadic brilliance can never match. The operating system you're running on. So what exactly is happening inside your system? Let's get specific. Your energy follows patterns. There are times during the day when your focus is naturally sharp, times when you're more open to social interaction, times when you need to retreat and process. These aren't random. They're predictable, but most people never track them, so they schedule their lives in direct opposition to their natural rhythms. Start paying attention to when you're at your best. For many introverts, mornings are golden, quiet, focused, undisturbed. That's when complex thinking happens easiest. But instead of protecting that time, they fill it with status meetings and email. By the time they get to the work that actually requires depth, they're already half drained. Then there's your social battery. Not all social interactions cost the same. A one-on-one conversation with someone you trust might actually energize you. A large group meeting where you're expected to perform drains you fast. A presentation to strangers costs even more. And rapid context switching between different types of interactions, jumping from a team huddle to a client call to a brainstorm, shreds your battery faster than anything. You also need to distinguish between good tired and bad tired. Good tired is when you've done deep, meaningful work and you feel satisfied but spent. Bad tired is when you've been overstimulated, interrupted constantly, and forced to perform in ways that don't fit you. Good tired recovers with rest. Bad tired lingers and builds into resentment. The key insight here is this. Your energy isn't infinite, but it's also not fixed. You can increase your capacity over time by designing your life to match your wiring instead of fighting it. Think of elite athletes. They don't train randomly. They plan intensity, recovery, and rest in deliberate cycles. You need to do the same with your leadership energy. The lies you've been told. Before we get to the solution, let's destroy 3 myths that keep introverted leaders stuck. Myth 1. Just push yourself to socialize more, and you'll get used to it. This is like telling someone to run marathons every day until their knees stop hurting. Brute force exposure doesn't build resilience. It builds burnout. You don't need more social interaction. You need the right social interaction at the right time in the right dose. Myth 2. Real leaders are always available. This belief is poison. Constant availability destroys your ability to think deeply, make good decisions, and do the work that actually moves things forward. Reactive leaders rarely drive long-term change. They just respond to whoever yells loudest. If you want to lead with depth and strategy, you need protected time. That means boundaries. That means saying no. That means being unavailable sometimes. Myth 3. If you're tired, you're lazy or weak. Stop it. Tiredness is data. It's your system telling you something is misaligned. Maybe you're overscheduled. Maybe you're doing too much low-value social performance. Maybe you're not getting enough recovery time. Listen to the signal instead of judging yourself for it. How to actually do this. Here's where theory meets practice. You're going to run a simple experiment for 1 week. Grab a notebook or open a document. Every day, write down your key activities, meetings, focused work, presentations, one-on-ones, whatever takes up significant time or energy. Next to each activity, rate it on a simple scale, +2 if it energized you, 0 if it was neutral, -2 if it drained you. Also note the time of day and the social context. At the end of the week, review your log. Look for patterns. When are you naturally sharpest? Which types of interactions drain you most? Which ones actually refill your tank? What surprises you? Most people discover that what they thought was draining them isn't the real culprit. It's not meetings in general. It's poorly run meetings with too many people at the wrong time of day. Once you have this data, you redesign your weekly rhythm. Cluster your high-energy tasks, strategic thinking, important decisions, key presentations in your natural focus windows. Place demanding social events next to recovery periods. If you have a big presentation on Tuesday afternoon, block Wednesday morning for solitude and deep work, not more meetings. Reserve at least one consistent block each week for uninterrupted focus time. Treat it like an unmovable appointment. Then, set boundaries around your social battery. Decide how many meetings per day keep you in your optimal zone. For many introverts, that's 2 to 3 substantive meetings max. Beyond that, you're just surviving, not leading. When possible, negotiate the timing of key meetings. Earlier in the day is usually better. Shorter is better. Sharper agendas are better. And learn polite scripts to decline or reschedule non-essential interactions. I'm at capacity this week, but I can do next Tuesday works wonders. Small moves, big leverage. Here are 3 tactical shifts that create outsized returns. First, use what I call bookend solitude for big events. Before a major meeting or presentation, spend 10 to 20 quiet minutes alone. No phone, no email. Just sit, breathe, and mentally prepare. After the event, take another 10 to 20 minutes to decompress and process. Don't immediately jump into the next thing. These bookends aren't luxuries. They're how you show up at your best and recover without collapsing. Second, default to asynchronous communication whenever possible. Instead of scheduling a call, write a clear message. Use shared documents and updates to reduce real-time pressure. This frees up your energy for the conversations that truly matter, the ones where your presence makes a difference. Not every interaction needs to be live. Third, create micro-recharge moments throughout your day. Step away from noise for 2 to 5 minutes between interactions. Take a short walk. Do a few deep breaths. Jot down a quick thought. These tiny resets prevent the slow drain that leads to afternoon crashes. Treat them as power-ups, not indulgences. What winning looks like. At the basic level, you'll feel less drained at the end of the day. You'll avoid major crashes after social or high-stress events. You'll be able to predict when you'll be sharp versus sluggish, and you'll plan accordingly. At the excellent level, you'll consistently show up at full power for key leadership moments. You'll schedule your week around high-leverage activities instead of reacting to whatever lands in your inbox. You'll feel deliberate rather than reactive with your time and energy. At the best level, your energy rhythm supports compounding growth over years. You can handle bigger responsibilities without burning out. You become known as steady, reliable, and clear-headed under pressure. That reputation opens doors that frantic hustle never will. When it goes sideways, you'll make mistakes, you'll underestimate your limits and overbook yourself. You'll ignore early fatigue signs and crash hard. When that happens, don't spiral into self-judgment. Just reduce at least one recurring draining commitment each month. Treat it as calibration, not failure. You'll also feel guilt about setting boundaries. You'll worry that saying no makes you selfish or difficult. Here's the reframe. Boundaries aren't about protecting yourself from others. They're about bringing your best to others. When you show up drained and resentful, nobody wins. When you show up rested and focused, everyone benefits. And yes, some colleagues will resist. They'll misread your boundaries as rejection or arrogance. They'll pressure you to go back to normal availability. Stay consistent. Explain the why once, then let your improved performance do the talking. Results silence critics faster than explanations. But here's what most people miss about energy mastery. It's not just about managing your calendar. It's about something deeper, something that determines whether people will follow you at all. And that's what the next chapter reveals. Chapter 3, Quiet Leadership. The room is chaos, voices overlap, someone's pounding the table, emotions are running hot, everyone's talking, but nobody's listening. And then someone turns to you, the person who's been sitting quietly, observing, and asks, "What do you think?" The room goes silent. They're waiting. Not because you're the loudest, not because you've been performing, but because when you speak, it means something. That's quiet leadership, and it's more powerful than anything charisma can buy. Most people think leadership is about being the most dynamic person in the room, the one with the biggest presence, the one who commands attention the moment they walk in. But here's what they miss. Leadership isn't about capturing attention. It's about earning trust. And trust doesn't come from theatrics. It comes from something much quieter, much deeper, and far more durable. This chapter will show you how to build a leadership style that fits who you actually are, not who you think you're supposed to be. You'll learn why calm beats charisma, why consistency compounds into influence, and how your natural tendency to observe before acting is exactly what makes you dangerous in the best possible way. The charisma trap. Let's start with what you've been told leadership looks like. The charismatic leader. Always on, always energized, walks into a room and owns it, tells inspiring stories, rallies the troops with passionate speeches, makes people feel excited just by being there. Sounds great, right? Except when you try to be that person and it feels like wearing someone else's skin. You force yourself to be on all the time, and it drains you. You try to match that energy, and you come across as fake. You attempt the big inspiring speech, and it lands flat because you don't believe your own performance. Here's the truth. Theatrical leadership can work, but it's fragile. It requires constant performance. It burns out the leader. And worse, it often overshadows substance. People get so caught up in the show that they stop asking whether the leader actually knows what they're doing. Charisma without competence is just noise. And for you, trying to lead this way is a death sentence. You'll burn out trying to sustain a performance that doesn't fit your wiring. You'll lose your authenticity, which is the one thing that actually makes you credible. And you'll waste energy on theatrics instead of the deep work that creates real results. So stop chasing charisma. It's not your game. You're playing a different one, and it's better. The anchor in the storm. Think about the last time you were in a crisis. Maybe a project imploded. Maybe a client threatened to leave. Maybe the team was panicking because a deadline moved up. What did people need in that moment? They didn't need hype. They didn't need a motivational speech. They needed someone calm. Someone who could think clearly while everyone else was losing their minds. Someone who could say, here's what we know. Here's what we don't know. Here's what we do next. That's what quiet leaders do. They become the emotional anchor when everything else is chaos, and people instinctively gravitate toward that. When the world is spinning, they look for the person who isn't spinning with it. Your low reactivity, the thing you might have been told makes you too reserved or not passionate enough, is actually a superpower. When you don't react immediately, people see thoughtfulness, not weakness. When you pause before responding, they see wisdom, not hesitation. When you stay calm under pressure, they see strength, not indifference. This is where introverts have a structural advantage. You're not wired to react fast and loud. You're wired to observe, process, and respond deliberately. In stable times, that might look slow, but in chaos, it looks like leadership. And here's the kicker. Calm presence builds trust faster than loud emotion ever will. Because trust isn't built in moments of excitement. It's built in moments of uncertainty. When people don't know what to do, they follow the person who seems to know. And seems to know is often just doesn't panic. What quiet leadership actually looks like. So what does this mean in practice? How do you lead when you're not the loudest voice? It starts with clarity. Quiet leaders win by being the clearest thinkers in the room. Not the fastest, not the flashiest, the clearest. You cut through the noise. You identify what actually matters. You separate signal from static, and you communicate that clarity in simple, direct language. You also win through consistency. Charisma creates spikes, moments of high energy that fade. Consistency creates compounding trust. When people know what to expect from you, they relax. They stop second-guessing. They stop politicking. They just do the work because they trust you'll be fair, honest, and predictable. Think about the leaders you've actually trusted over your career. Chances are, they weren't the most charismatic. They were the ones who showed up the same way every day. The ones who kept their word. The ones who didn't have dramatic mood swings or play favorites. The ones who made you feel safe enough to do your best work. That's what you're building, not a cult of personality, a culture of trust. And here's what most people miss. Quiet leadership isn't about being passive. It's about being intentional. There's a massive difference between hiding and observing. Hiding is fear-based. You stay silent because you're afraid to be wrong or judged. Observing is strategic. You stay silent because you're gathering information, reading the room, waiting for the moment when your input will actually land. When you do speak, it carries weight because you don't waste words. You don't fill air. You contribute when you have something worth saying. And over time, People learn that when you open your mouth, they should listen. The lies that keep you small. Before we go further, let's kill 3 myths that stop introverted leaders from owning their power. Myth 1. You just need more charisma. No, you need more clarity. Charisma is a shortcut that works for some people. Clarity is a foundation that works for everyone. Stop trying to be entertaining. Start trying to be understood. Performance training won't fix a misaligned leadership style. Building real competence and communicating it clearly will. Myth 2. If you're not constantly visible, you're not leading. Wrong. Leadership is not about calendar presence. It's about impact. Some of the most effective leaders are the least visible day to day. They show up intentionally at crucial moments. They make decisions that matter. They create clarity when it's needed. The rest of the time, they're doing the deep work that actually moves things forward. Over-visibility dilutes your impact. It turns you into a reactive figurehead instead of a strategic driver. Myth 3. Leaders must have instant answers. This one's poison. Fast answers are often shallow or wrong. The pressure to respond immediately forces you into surface-level thinking, but the best decisions come from taking time to consider options, anticipate consequences, and consult the right people. Learn to say, "I need to think about this," with confidence. It's not weakness, it's wisdom, and over time, people will respect you more for it, not less. Building your quiet leadership blueprint. Here's how you actually do this. Start by defining your leadership non-negotiables. What are the 3 to 5 principles you refuse to compromise on? Maybe it's honesty. Maybe it's fairness. Maybe it's thoroughness. Maybe it's respect for people's time. Write them down. Then decide how each principle should show up in your daily behavior. If fairness is non-negotiable, what does that look like when you're assigning work or giving feedback? If honesty is core, how do you handle difficult conversations? Once you've defined these, share them with your team, not in some grand announcement, just in normal conversation. Here's what you can expect from me. I'll always be straight with you. I'll listen before deciding. I won't play favorites. This sets the frame. It tells people who you are and how you operate, and it gives you a standard to hold yourself to. Next, adopt a listening-first meeting framework. When you're leading a discussion, resist the urge to jump in with your opinion first. Start by inviting others to share their perspectives. Ask clarifying questions. Dig deeper. Can you say more about that? What's the risk you're seeing? What would success look like? Let the conversation breathe. Then, once you've heard everyone, summarize the key points and clearly state the decision or next steps. This does 2 things. It makes people feel heard, and it positions you as the synthesizer, the person who makes sense of complexity. Finally, build calm rituals into your leadership. Begin key meetings with a brief agenda and outcome statement. Here's what we're here to decide. Here's how we'll use the next hour. End meetings with clear assignments and timelines. Sarah, you're owning this by Friday. Tom, you're supporting her on the data piece. I'll check in Wednesday. Maintain consistent check-ins to reduce surprises and panic. Predictability is your friend. It creates psychological safety, and psychological safety creates performance. Small moves, massive leverage. 3 tactical shifts that amplify your quiet leadership. First, use silence strategically. When someone finishes speaking, pause for 2 or 3 seconds before responding. This shows you're actually considering what they said, not just waiting for your turn to talk. It also gives others space to add more. People often say their most important thought in the silence after they think they're done. And when you make a key point, let it hang in the air for a moment. Don't rush to fill the space. Let it sink in. Second, anchor your leadership with simple, repeatable phrases. Develop a go-to line that shifts the energy when things get frantic. Something like, "Let's slow this down and think," or "What's the real problem we're solving here?" Use it consistently. Over time, it becomes part of your recognizable style. People start to associate you with that calm, clarifying presence. Third, strengthen your presence through preparation. Before important meetings, review the key facts and questions. Visualize how you want to show up. Calm, firm, clear. Prepare 1 or 2 points you want to land no matter what. This isn't about scripting every word, it's about walking in grounded, not scrambling. Preparation is what allows you to be present instead of anxious. What winning looks like. At the basic level, people stop mistaking your quietness for disengagement. They notice you're listening and considering their input. Your voice starts to carry more weight when you do speak. At the excellent level, you become a stabilizing force. Colleagues seek your perspective in complex or tense situations. Your team relaxes when you're in the room because they know you'll bring clarity. You earn informal influence that goes way beyond your formal role. At the best level, you're entrusted with high-stakes decisions and long-term initiatives. Your leadership style becomes a model others try to copy. You shape culture and strategy without ever needing to be the loudest. You become the leader people want to work for, not because you're exciting, but because you're trustworthy. When it breaks down, you'll make mistakes. You'll lean too far into silence, and people will feel abandoned. Decisions will stall because you're holding back your perspective. When that happens, pair your silence with clear wrap-ups and explicit decisions. Don't just observe, conclude. You'll also be tempted to avoid conflict in the name of staying calm. You'll let issues slide to keep the peace. Small problems will grow into big resentments. Fix this by scheduling focused, time-boxed conversations to address tension. Calm doesn't mean conflict avoidant. It means addressing conflict without drama. And some people will misread your calm as weakness. They'll test your boundaries. They'll ignore your input. When that happens, respond firmly but calmly. Don't overreact to prove strength. Just hold the line. Stay consistent. Let your follow-through do the talking. But here's what none of this addresses yet. How do you actually think through the complex decisions that leadership demands? How do you turn your natural tendency to reflect into a strategic advantage instead of a liability? That's where the next chapter takes you, into the engine room of your mind. Chapter 4, Deep Thinking. You're lying awake at 2 a.m, running through scenarios, the project, the decision, the 10 different ways it could go wrong. Your mind won't stop. It connects dots, spots patterns, simulates outcomes. By morning, you've mentally walked through more possibilities than your colleagues will consider all week. And then you get to the meeting. Someone proposes the obvious solution, the one you already dismissed in your head 3 days ago. You see the flaws, you see the risks they're missing, but the moment passes, they move forward, and 6 weeks later, the project hits exactly the problem you predicted. This happens to you over and over. You think deeply, you see clearly, but your insights arrive too late, stay trapped in your head, or get dismissed because you can't articulate them fast enough in the moment. Here's the truth. Your tendency to think deeply isn't the problem. The problem is that your thinking is unstructured. It's powerful, but directionless. It spins instead of landing, and that's fixable. This chapter will show you how to turn your reflective nature into a strategic weapon. You'll learn to channel your depth into better decisions, sharper strategy, and clearer direction. You'll stop being the person with great ideas too late and become the person whose thinking drives outcomes. Why depth wins. Let's start with why this matters. The modern world is complex. Most problems don't have simple, instant answers. The issues you're dealing with, whether it's organizational strategy, product decisions, or people dynamics, have multiple variables, hidden dependencies, and long-term consequences. Shallow thinking misses all of that. When you rush decisions, you pay later. You miss critical risks. You overlook better options. You create rework, conflict, and lost trust. The fast answer feels efficient in the moment, but it's expensive over time. Deep thinking isn't a luxury. It's a necessity. The question is whether you're doing it in a way that actually helps or just makes you anxious. Here's where introverts have a structural edge. You're wired for what psychologists call System 2 thinking. Slow, deliberate, analytical. You naturally analyze situations, connect dots across different domains, and foresee risks others miss. While extroverts are often optimized for quick social reads and rapid responses, you're optimized for complexity and nuance. This is a leadership asset, not a flaw. In stable, simple environments, fast reactions might win, but in complex, high-stakes environments, depth wins. You can outthink louder peers over time. The trick is learning to direct that thinking so it produces decisions instead of just anxiety. The overthinking trap. But here's the problem you've probably experienced. Not all thinking is useful. There's a massive difference between strategic thinking and rumination. Strategic thinking is directed. You're asking specific questions. You're testing assumptions. You're mapping scenarios. You're moving toward a decision. Rumination is circular. You're replaying the same worries. You're spiraling without progress. You're thinking about thinking. It feels productive, but it's just mental spinning. The issue isn't that you think too much. The issue is that your thinking lacks structure. Without a framework, your mind wanders. It chases every tangent. It gets stuck in loops. It confuses motion with progress. And eventually you either freeze or make a decision out of exhaustion, not clarity. What you need is a system, a way to direct your attention with frameworks instead of feelings, a process that moves you from thought to action instead of getting stuck in analysis. When you have that, your depth becomes a multiplier. Without it, it's just noise. The speed myth. Before we go further, let's destroy the myth that's probably been haunting you. You need to decide faster to be a real leader. No, you need to decide better. Speed without accuracy is just expensive noise. Yes, some decisions need to be made quickly, but most don't. Most benefit from taking time to think through options, anticipate consequences, and consult the right people. The leaders who seem to decide fast aren't actually faster thinkers. They're using frameworks. They've thought through similar problems before. They've built mental models that let them pattern match quickly. They're not winging it. They're applying structure. You can do the same. You can move quickly when you need to, but only if you've done the slow thinking in advance. Build your frameworks now. Do the deep work on recurring decisions. Then, when speed matters, you'll have the structure to move fast without being reckless. Replace random speed with deliberate tempo. Think then act. Don't just react. And here's the other myth. Thinking too much is always bad. Wrong. Directionless thinking is bad. Depth focused on the right questions is an advantage. Stop calling yourself an overthinker. You're a deep thinker who needs better structure. Finally, the instinct myth. Good decisions are about gut feel, not analysis. Instincts aren't magic. They're pattern recognition built on experience, and experience without reflection is just repetition. The best instincts come from repeated, thoughtful practice. You build better instincts by thinking better, not by thinking less. Building your decision engine. So how do you actually structure your thinking? Start with a decision journal. This is simple but powerful. Whenever you face a major decision, write it down. Describe the situation. List your options. Explain your reasoning for each. Note what you predict will happen and what would change your mind. This does 3 things. First, it forces you to clarify your thinking. Writing exposes fuzzy logic. Second, it creates a record you can review later. You'll see patterns in how you think and where you tend to go wrong. Third, it slows you down just enough to catch biases and assumptions you'd otherwise miss. Review your past entries monthly. Look at what you got right and what you got wrong. Don't judge yourself. Just learn. Over time, your judgment sharpens. You start recognizing your blind spots. You develop better instincts because you're building them on examined experience, not just repetition. Next, run pre-mortems on big projects or decisions. Here's how it works. Imagine it's 6 months from now, and the project has failed spectacularly. Now list 10 reasons why it failed. Be specific. Be brutal. We underestimated the timeline. The client changed requirements halfway through. We didn't have buy-in from the key stakeholder. The technology didn't scale. This exercise surfaces risks you wouldn't see with normal planning. When you're imagining success, your brain filters out problems. When you're imagining failure, your brain gets creative about what could go wrong. Use that list to adjust your plan before you start. Add buffers. Get early buy-in. Test assumptions. Design around the risks instead of hoping they won't happen. Finally, time box your thinking. Set a clear window. maybe 24 to 48 hours, to think about a big decision. Gather relevant information within that window. Talk to the right people. Write out your reasoning. But at the end of that window, decide and commit. Even if uncertainty remains, even if you don't have perfect information, because you never will. The time box prevents analysis paralysis. It gives your thinking boundaries, and it forces you to move from exploration to conclusion. You're not cutting your thinking short. You're giving it a container so it doesn't expand forever. Sharpening the blade. 3 tactical moves that amplify your thinking. First, ask better questions. Most people ask shallow questions and get shallow answers. You need to go deeper. When you're analyzing a decision, ask, "What am I missing?" This forces you to look for blind spots. Ask, "Who else is affected by this?" This expands your perspective beyond your immediate view. Ask, "What if I'm wrong?" This uncovers hidden risks and alternative scenarios. And ask, "What would this look like if it were easy?" This helps you avoid overcomplicating simple problems. These questions redirect your thinking. They pull you out of loops and push you toward insight. Make them habitual. Use them every time you're working through something complex. Second, think on paper, not just in your head. Your brain is great at generating ideas. It's terrible at organizing them. When you try to hold everything in your head, you lose threads. You forget connections. You can't see the full picture. Dump your thoughts onto a page. Don't edit. Just get it all out. Then organize it. Highlight patterns. Note contradictions. Identify what's missing. This external thinking gives you perspective you can't get internally, and it creates a record you can share with others, which brings us to the third move. Share your thinking, not just your conclusions. When you make a decision, briefly explain how you got there. Here's what I considered. Here's what I weighed. Here's why I landed here. This does 2 things. It invites feedback on your reasoning, which sharpens it, and it builds trust by making your process visible and repeatable. People trust leaders whose thinking they can follow, even when they disagree with the conclusion. What victory looks like. At the basic level, you avoid obvious traps you used to fall into. Your decisions feel less rushed and more grounded. People start noticing that your choices just make more sense. You're not perfect, but you're consistently better than you were. At the excellent level, colleagues start seeking your input on complex issues. Your predictions and risk assessments prove accurate more often than not. You become the informal strategist in your group or team. People come to you when they need to think something through, not just when they need a quick answer. At the best level, your thinking shapes direction at scale. Your frameworks and approaches get adopted by others. You influence major decisions and long-term strategies. Your quiet, structured thinking becomes a core part of your leadership brand. You're the person who sees around corners, and that reputation opens doors that charisma never could. When it breaks, you'll hit 3 common traps. First, analysis paralysis. You'll endlessly seek more information and never decide. Opportunities will pass while you're still evaluating. When this happens, set hard deadlines and default options. If you haven't decided by Friday, the default is option B. This forces closure. Second, you'll overcomplicate simple choices. You'll waste time and energy on low-impact decisions. You'll feel mentally exhausted by trivial choices. Fix this with simple rules. For decisions that don't matter much, use good enough in 5 minutes. Don't overthink what doesn't deserve it. Third, you'll think in a bubble. You'll miss perspectives from others who see different angles. Your decisions will feel smart on paper, but fail in reality because you didn't account for something outside your view. Fix this by building a small thinking circle. 2 or 3 people who challenge you, ask hard questions, and bring different perspectives. Use them. Don't just think alone. The missing piece. But here's what even the best thinking can't solve on its own. If your insights stay trapped in your head, they're worthless. You can have the clearest strategy, the sharpest analysis, the most accurate predictions, and none of it matters if you can't communicate it in a way that moves people. That's the gap most introverted leaders never close. They think brilliantly, they decide wisely, and then they fail to translate that into influence because they can't or won't speak up in the moments that matter. The next chapter shows you how to fix that, how to turn your depth into words that land, how to make your voice count without becoming someone you're not. Because thinking is only half the game. The other half is what happens when you open your mouth. Chapter 5, Powerful Communication. You have the answer. You've thought it through. You see the solution clearly. The meeting is happening right now. People are talking past each other, missing the obvious. You know exactly what needs to be said. But you don't say it. The moment passes. Someone else speaks. The conversation moves on. And you walk out frustrated, replaying what you should have said, knowing your silence just cost the team weeks of wasted effort. This isn't about being shy. It's about a fundamental mismatch between how you process information and how the world expects you to communicate. You think before you speak. You need time to formulate. You prefer precision over speed. But the world rewards fast talkers. The people who jump in first, the ones who fill the air with words even when half of them are noise. Here's what this chapter will show you. You don't need to become a fast talker to have powerful communication. You need to redesign how you communicate so it plays to your actual strengths. Fewer words, more impact, and a system that makes your voice count without requiring you to perform like someone you're not. Why your silence is costing you. Let's be clear about what's at stake. Leadership is communication in motion. People can't follow you if they can't hear or understand you. Your ideas, no matter how brilliant, only create change once they leave your head. You can be the smartest person in the room, but if you stay silent, you're invisible. And invisible people don't lead. The problem is that without a system, you're always waiting for the perfect moment. The moment when you've thought it through completely. The moment when you can articulate it perfectly. The moment when the conversation naturally pauses and invites you in. But that moment rarely comes. Fast talkers dominate. They don't wait for perfection. They just talk. And while you're still formulating, they're shaping the decision. Your silence gets misread. People assume you're disengaged or confused or that you don't have an opinion. They don't know you're processing. They don't know you're 3 steps ahead. They just know you're quiet. And in the absence of your voice, they fill in the blanks, usually incorrectly. But here's the flip side. When you do communicate well, you have an advantage most loud people will never have. Thoughtful, concise messages are easier to trust. When you speak less but say more, people lean in. When your words are precise, they stick. When you communicate with clarity instead of volume, you build credibility that lasts. The question isn't whether you can communicate powerfully. It's whether you're willing to design a communication style that fits your wiring instead of fighting it. Designing your voice. So what does powerful communication look like for an introvert? It starts with knowing what you're building toward. You need to define how you want to come across, not how others think you should be, how you actually want to be. Maybe it's calm, clear, direct, respectful. Maybe it's thoughtful and precise. Maybe it's grounded and steady. Write it down. This becomes your communication identity. Every time you speak or write, you're reinforcing this identity, or you're undermining it. There's no neutral. Next, identify which channels play to your strengths. You're probably better in writing than in rapid-fire verbal exchanges. You're probably better in one-on-ones than in large groups. You're probably better when you've had time to prepare than when you're put on the spot. That's not weakness. That's data. Use it. Build your communication strategy around these channels. Make writing a primary leadership tool, not a fallback. Use one-on-ones as your main arena for influence, not an afterthought. Prepare for key meetings so you show up with clarity, not anxiety. This isn't about avoiding discomfort. It's about maximizing leverage. Think of it as a style guide. Athletes have a game plan. Writers have a voice. You need a communication system, a set of principles and practices you follow intentionally. Over time, this becomes automatic, but it starts with a decision. You're going to communicate your way, not theirs. The power of listening-led influence. Here's something most people miss. The best communicators aren't the best talkers. They're the best listeners. When you lead with listening, you do three things. First, you gather better information. You hear what people actually care about, what they're worried about, what they need. Second, you make people feel valued. When someone truly listens, it's rare. It builds trust and loyalty faster than any speech. Third, you earn the right to be heard. When you've listened deeply, people want to hear what you think. This is where introverts have a natural edge. You're wired to observe before acting. You notice nuance. You pick up on what's unsaid. You don't interrupt because you're not fighting for airtime. You're gathering data. Use that. In meetings, start by drawing others out. Ask questions. What's your take on this? What's the biggest risk you see? Can you say more about that? Let them talk. Let them think out loud. Let them feel heard. Then, when you summarize what you've heard and add your perspective, it lands with weight, because you've shown you understand before you've asked them to understand you. Questions are also how you lead without dominating. Instead of telling people what to do, ask questions that guide them to the answer. What would happen if we tried this? What's the downside we're not seeing? Who else needs to be involved? This approach respects their intelligence, uncovers hidden information, and positions you as a facilitator of clarity, not a dictator of answers. And here's the move that separates good listeners from great leaders. Summarize what you've heard before you decide. Here's what I'm hearing. We're concerned about timeline, budget, and whether the client will actually use this. Does that capture it? This does two things. It confirms you understood, and it shows you're synthesizing, not just absorbing. People trust leaders who can make sense of complexity. Writing as a leadership weapon. Now let's talk about the channel most introverts underuse. Writing. Writing is your unfair advantage. It gives you time to think, time to edit, time to get it right. It scales. One email can reach 50 people. It lasts. A well-written memo becomes a reference point for months, and it removes the performance pressure of real-time conversation. Warren Buffett has shaped global investor expectations for decades through his annual letters. Not speeches, not interviews, letters. Calm, plain language, clear thinking, no hype, just substance. And it works because people trust clarity. They trust someone who can explain complex ideas simply. They trust someone who doesn't need theatrics to make a point. You can do the same at your scale. Use emails, memos, and shared documents to frame decisions and priorities. After a big meeting, send a brief recap. Here's what we decided. Here's who owns what. Here's the deadline. This cements direction. It prevents the drift that happens when people leave a meeting with different interpretations of what just happened. Establish a rhythm of written updates. Maybe it's a short weekly message to your team. Wins from the week, priorities for next week, risks you're watching. It doesn't need to be long. It just needs to be consistent. This keeps your leadership visible even when you're not in the room. It builds trust through transparency, and it gives people a steady drumbeat of clarity. The key is to make writing a primary channel, not a backup. Don't just write when you can't talk. Write because it's often the better choice. It's clearer, it's more thoughtful, it's more scalable, and it plays to your strengths. Breaking the silence barrier. But you can't avoid speaking entirely. There will be moments when you need to contribute in real time. So how do you do that without the anxiety spiral? First, prepare key points before important meetings. Don't try to script everything. Just write down 2 or 3 things you must say. Practice saying them in 1 or 2 clear sentences each. These become your anchors. When the conversation flows, you have something solid to grab onto. You're not improvising from scratch. You're deploying prepared clarity. Second, use entry phrases to join conversations. Have a few go-to lines ready. I see it slightly differently. Can I add something here? I want to build on what you just said. These are your on-ramps. They give you a way in without needing the perfect opening. Make speaking up a habit, not a rare event. The more you do it, the less it feels like a performance. Third, redirect your focus from yourself to the message. When you're anxious about speaking, you're thinking about how you look, how you sound, whether you'll stumble. Shift the question. Ask yourself, what does this group need from me right now? Focus on solving the problem, not on your performance. This mental shift reduces pressure and makes your contribution more useful. And simplify your language. Avoid jargon. Avoid long explanations. Aim for short, concrete sentences. Use examples and analogies to make ideas stick. Then check understanding. Does this make sense? What's unclear? This invites dialogue instead of monologue. It keeps you grounded, and it ensures your message actually landed. The 3 traps. You'll hit 3 common mistakes. First, over-reliance on writing. You'll hide behind emails and avoid live conversations. People will feel distance or coldness despite your clarity. When this happens, pair important emails with a short one-on-one or a quick check-in. Use writing to frame the issue, then talk to build connection. Second, listening without leading. You'll gather input but never make clear calls. Your team will feel heard but directionless. Fix this by always ending key conversations with a decision. Here's what we'll do next. Don't just facilitate, conclude. Third, avoiding difficult conversations. You'll dodge conflict and hope problems resolve themselves. Underperformance or tension will quietly rot your team culture. Fix this by scheduling focused, time-boxed conversations. Use direct but kind scripts. I need to talk about something that's not working. Here's what I'm seeing. What's your perspective? Don't let issues fester. Address them early, calmly, and clearly. What winning looks like. At the basic level, you feel less awkward and more intentional. You speak in meetings without dreading it all day. People understand your points the first time. You stop replaying every conversation in your head for hours. At the excellent level, your communication becomes a strength. Colleagues quote your emails and summaries as reference points. People come to you to help phrase this or make this clear. Your written and spoken messages move projects forward reliably. At the best level, you become the clarity hub. Senior leaders trust you to frame complex issues for others. Your way of communicating shapes the communication culture around you. Your influence grows even when you're not physically present. You're the person who makes sense of chaos, and that's power. But there's one arena where even the best communicators struggle. One situation that drains introverts faster than anything else. One moment where all your preparation, all your clarity, all your listening skills get tested under the harshest spotlight. And that's what the next chapter is about. Chapter 6, Visible Calm. The presentation is in 3 days. You've been dreading it for 2 weeks. Your stomach tightens every time you think about standing in front of that room. 30 people, all eyes on you, waiting for you to say something brilliant, or at least coherent. You've prepared, you know your material, but that doesn't stop the spiral. What if you freeze? What if your voice shakes? What if someone asks a question you can't answer? What if you just blank? So you start rehearsing obsessively. You script every word. You anticipate every question. You try to control every variable. And somehow, the more you prepare, the more anxious you get. Here's what nobody tells you. The anxiety isn't about your capability. It's about uncertainty. Your brain is screaming because it can't predict what will happen. And the solution isn't to become a different person. It's to reduce the uncertainty in a way that fits how you're wired. This chapter will show you how to handle high-visibility moments, presentations, public speaking, any situation where you're on stage, without faking extroversion or collapsing afterward. You'll learn to prepare like an introvert, deliver with quiet authority, and recover without losing 3 days to exhaustion. Your goal isn't to become a performer, it's to become calmly compelling. Why you can't avoid the spotlight. Let's start with why this matters. Visibility amplifies influence. Whether you like it or not, presentations and public moments shape your reputation. One strong talk can open doors that years of quiet competence won't. Speaking well signals credibility. It builds trust. It positions you as someone who can handle pressure. Avoiding visibility keeps your impact capped. You might be brilliant in one-on-ones, you might write incredible memos, but if you never step into visible moments, you're limiting your reach. Leadership at scale requires some level of public presence. Not constant, not theatrical, but intentional. And here's the trap most introverts fall into. One bad experience creates a pattern of avoidance. You stumble through a presentation, you feel humiliated, you vow never to do it again, you start declining opportunities. You rationalize it as not your strength. But what you're really doing is letting one moment define your entire trajectory. The fear you feel isn't proof you can't do this. It's proof your brain is trying to protect you from uncertainty. And uncertainty can be managed, not eliminated. Managed. Here's the reframe. Your natural calm, the thing that makes you feel too reserved in everyday moments, becomes an asset on stage. When you're grounded and steady, you calm the room. You raise confidence. People relax because you're not adding to the chaos. They trust you because you seem in control, even when you're nervous inside. You don't need to be exciting, you need to be convincing. And convincing comes from clarity, preparation, and presence, not volume. The performance you can actually pull off. So, what does a high visibility moment look like when you design it for an introvert? It starts with treating every presentation as a planned performance, not improvisation, not winging it, a show you've rehearsed. Think of it like this. Actors don't walk on stage and make it up. They have scripts, they rehearse, they know their blocking, they've practiced their lines until they're automatic. You need to do the same. Not because you're faking it, because preparation shrinks uncertainty. And when uncertainty shrinks, anxiety drops. Use scripts and outlines. Write your opening word for word. Know exactly how you'll start. Good morning. I'm here to talk about why our current approach to client onboarding is costing us deals and what we can do about it. Rehearse that until it's muscle memory. Do the same with your closing. Here's what I'm asking. Commit to testing this new process for 30 days. That's it. 30 days. Let's see what happens. The middle doesn't need to be scripted. Use bullet points. Know your key messages, but give yourself room to breathe. The opening and closing are your anchors. They keep you from getting lost. Build repeatable routines before, during, and after you speak. Before, 10 minutes of quiet, slow breathing, mental rehearsal of your opening. During, deliberate pacing, pauses between points, eye contact with one person at a time, not scanning the room. After, 10 to 30 minutes alone to decompress. No immediate meetings, no forced socializing, just recovery. These routines become your scaffolding. They give you predictability in an unpredictable situation. And predictability is what your nervous system needs to stay calm. Structure as your safety net. Now let's talk about how to actually structure a talk. Keep it simple. 3 parts: problem, insight, action. Start with the problem. What's at stake? Why does this matter now? We're losing 20% of potential clients in the first week after they sign up. That's costing us $500,000 a year. This frames the conversation. It tells people why they should care. Next, offer your insight. What's different about your view? What do you see that others might be missing? The issue isn't our product. It's that we're overwhelming them with too much, too fast. They sign up excited, then they get buried in setup tasks and disappear. This is where your depth shines. You've thought this through. You've connected dots. Share that. End with action. What do you want people to do next? Be specific. I'm proposing we simplify onboarding to 3 steps in week 1. Just 3. Everything else waits until week 2. I need your approval to pilot this with the next 50 clients. Clear, concrete, actionable. This structure keeps you from wandering. You always know where you are. Problem, insight, action. If you get lost, you can anchor back to the structure, and your audience can follow you because the path is clear. Use transitions to signal where you're going. So that's the problem. Now let me show you what we're missing. Here's what I'm proposing. These verbal signposts help you and help them. Nobody gets lost. And limit yourself to a few key messages per talk. Don't try to say everything. Say the 3 things that matter most. Repeat them. Let them sink in. People won't remember 10 points. They'll remember 2 or 3. Make sure those are the right ones. Calmly compelling, not entertaining. Here's where most advice about public speaking goes wrong. It tells you to be dynamic, energetic, engaging, to use big gestures and vocal variety and humor. And if that's natural for you, great, but if it's not, forcing it makes you look fake. Your style is different, calmly compelling. You speak at a steady pace, you use deliberate pauses, you don't rush, you don't perform, you just deliver. And that steadiness is magnetic. It signals confidence, it signals control. It makes people lean in because they sense you know what you're talking about. Bill Gates doesn't dazzle audiences with charisma. He uses simple slides and clear language. His influence comes from insight, not showmanship. He prioritizes clarity over flair. And it works because people trust substance. Susan Cain gave a TED Talk that's been viewed millions of times. Her delivery was calm, gentle, no theatrics, just conviction and story. And it captivated people because the message mattered and she believed it. Your inner belief matters more than your outer volume. Use stories and examples instead of trying to be entertaining. Stories make ideas stick. They give people something concrete to hold on to. Let me tell you what happened with our last 3 clients who churned in week 1. That's more powerful than abstract theory, and it's easier for you to deliver because you're just recounting what happened, not performing. Aim for trust and clarity, not entertainment. You're not a comedian, you're a leader sharing something important. Treat it that way. The lies that keep you stuck. 3 myths you need to kill right now. Myth 1. You just need to loosen up and wing it. No. Improvisation under pressure raises anxiety for most introverts. Lack of preparation feeds the fear loop. You spiral because you don't know what's coming. Smart, right-sized preparation is your friend, not over-preparation, not under-preparation, just enough structure to feel grounded. Myth 2. Great speakers are born, not made. Wrong. Speaking is a trainable skill like any other. Many of the speakers you admire are heavily rehearsed. They've practiced their talks dozens of times. They've refined their pacing, their pauses, their stories. Stop labeling yourself as bad at speaking and start practicing. Myth 3. If you're nervous, you shouldn't be on stage. Nerves are a normal physiological response to exposure. Your body is releasing adrenaline because it thinks you're in danger. But you're not. You're just visible. Learn to interpret that adrenaline as energy, not danger. Reframe it. I'm not scared. I'm ready. Some nerves will always be there, and that's okay. They keep you sharp. Tactical moves that work. 3 small shifts that make a big difference. First, manage your body to manage your mind. Before you go on stage, use slow breathing. 4 counts in, 4 counts hold, 4 counts out. Repeat 5 times. This calms your nervous system. Stand or sit in a stance that feels grounded and stable. Feet flat, shoulders back, not rigid, just solid. Make deliberate eye contact with one person at a time. Don't scan the room, just connect with one face, then move to another. This makes it feel like a series of one-on-one conversations, not a performance. Second, simplify your visuals. Keep slides clean, minimal text, clear visuals. Avoid reading from slides. Let them support your message, not replace it. And here's the move most people skip. Have a no-slide version ready in case of tech failure. Know your talk well enough that you can deliver it with nothing. This removes a huge source of anxiety. If the slides fail, you're fine. You just keep going. Third, plan recovery afterward. Block 10 to 30 minutes after a big talk to decompress. Go for a walk. Sit quietly. Journal briefly. Do something that calms you. Don't immediately jump into the next thing. Treat this as essential, not optional. This is how you avoid the post-event crash that makes you vow never to speak again. What success looks like. At the basic level, you can deliver presentations without dreading them for weeks. Your voice stays steady. Your message gets across. You recover faster after speaking, rather than feeling wrecked all day. At the excellent level, colleagues describe you as clear, organized, and reassuring on stage. You're invited to present updates or lead briefings regularly. Your talks move decisions forward rather than just inform. At the best level, senior leaders trust you to communicate on critical topics. Your calm style becomes an organizational asset in tense moments. You're seen as a credible, steady voice in public or high-stakes forums. You become the person they turn to when the message needs to land right. When it falls apart, you'll make mistakes. You'll over-prepare and sound robotic. You'll panic when something deviates from your plan. Fix this by rehearsing with small variations. Practice recovering from interruptions. Good question. Let me come back to that in a moment. Build flexibility into your structure. Tech will fail. Slides won't work. Microphones will cut out. Rooms will be noisy. Your anxiety will spike. Have a printed outline. Be ready to present without slides. Know your talk well enough that you can adapt. And you'll crash afterward. You'll feel so drained you vow never to speak again. You'll interpret the crash as proof you aren't meant to do this. Stop. Normalize the crash. Plan recovery. And debrief what went well, not just what went wrong. The crash is just your battery recharging. It's not a verdict on your capability. But here's what even the best presentations can't solve: the daily grind of working with people, the one-on-ones, the team dynamics, the relationships that either amplify your leadership or quietly undermine it. That's the terrain where most introverted leaders either thrive or disappear, and it's where the next chapter takes you. Chapter 7, People Power. You're sitting across from someone on your team. They're struggling. You can see it. They're behind on deadlines, distracted in meetings, clearly stressed, but they keep saying, "I'm fine. Everything's fine." You know they're not fine, and you also know that if you push too hard, they'll shut down. If you don't push at all, the problem festers. So you sit there, trying to figure out the right thing to say, feeling like you're terrible at this whole people thing. Here's what you're missing. You're not bad at people. You're just playing the wrong game. Most leadership advice assumes you should be great at working a room, energizing crowds, and building rapport through constant social interaction. But that's not where real relationships are built. Real relationships, the kind that create loyalty, trust, and high performance, are built in quiet moments, one-on-one conversations, small groups, deep attention, and that's exactly where introverts excel. This chapter will show you how to leverage your natural strengths to build relationships that actually matter. You'll learn to master one-on-ones, design teams that complement your style, and use your calm presence to create psychological safety. You'll stop judging yourself by extrovert standards and start building influence the way that fits you. Why you can't lead alone. Let's start with the hard truth. Leadership is relational, not solo. You're not leading tasks. You're not leading processes. You're leading humans. And humans are messy, emotional, unpredictable, and absolutely essential to everything you're trying to accomplish. Influence doesn't flow from your title. It flows through trust. People follow you because they trust you'll be fair, honest, and competent. They follow you because they feel safe with you. They follow you because they believe you see them, hear them, and care about their success. You can't escape people work if you want to lead. You can structure it, you can design it to fit your wiring, but you can't avoid it. And here's the good news. You're probably better at it than you think. The problem is, you've been judging yourself by the wrong standard. You see extroverts who seem effortlessly social. They light up rooms. They remember everyone's names. They thrive in big groups. And you compare yourself to that and feel inadequate. But here's what you're missing. Surface-level charm isn't the same as deep trust. Being the life of the room isn't the same as being the person people turn to when things get hard. You don't need to love crowds to be good with people. You just need to be good in the settings where real relationships form. And for most people, that's not a networking event. It's a quiet conversation where someone feels truly heard. Your quiet attention is rare. Most people are waiting for their turn to talk. You're actually listening. Most people are scanning the room for the next interaction. You're fully present. Most people offer quick fixes. You sit with complexity. And when someone experiences that kind of attention, it creates loyalty that charisma can't buy. The arena where you win. So where do you focus your relational energy? One-on-ones. This is your main arena, not big team meetings, not company-wide events, not forced happy hours, one-on-one conversations where you can go deep. Treat these as the core of your leadership, not a side chore. This is where you uncover what's really happening, where you build trust, where you learn what people actually need, what's blocking them, what they're worried about, what they're excited about. This is where psychological safety gets built, one conversation at a time. Most leaders treat one-on-ones as status updates. How's the project going? Any blockers? Okay, great. See you next week. That's a waste. You're not gathering information. You're checking a box. Instead, open with a question that invites depth. What's on your mind? Simple, open-ended. It gives them permission to talk about what actually matters to them, not just what they think you want to hear. Then listen. Don't interrupt. Don't jump to solutions. Just listen. Ask about obstacles. What's getting in your way right now? This shifts the conversation from status to support. You're not just tracking progress, you're removing barriers. And when you do that consistently, people start bringing you problems early instead of hiding them until they explode. Close with alignment. What are your next steps? How can I support you? This makes it clear you're not just listening to be nice, you're listening to help them succeed. And it puts the ownership back on them while making your support explicit. These conversations don't need to be long. 20 to 30 minutes is often enough. But they need to be consistent, weekly or bi-weekly. Predictable, because trust is built through repetition, not intensity. Building teams that fit you. Now, let's talk about team dynamics. You're not going to be great at everything, and that's fine. The goal isn't to become well-rounded, it's to build a team that's well-rounded. Start by mapping strengths and styles across your team. Who's naturally extroverted and energized by big group interactions? Who's great at networking and building broad connections? Who thrives in high-energy brainstorms? Those people should own those tasks. Don't try to compete with them. Leverage them. Delegate the extrovert-friendly work when possible. Big networking events, client schmoozing, high-energy team-building activities. You don't need to be the face of everything. Let the people who love that stuff do it. Your job is to make sure it happens, not to do it all yourself. Meanwhile, take on the depth-focused tasks, strategy, complex problem-solving, difficult one-on-one conversations, long-term planning. This is where you add the most value. This is where your wiring gives you an edge. Own it. Make diversity of styles an explicit advantage, not a source of friction. Talk about it openly. I know I'm not the most outgoing person in the room. That's why I'm glad we have people like you who are great at that. Here's where I add value. Here's where you add value. Together, we're stronger. This removes the pressure to be something you're not and creates a culture where different strengths are valued. And here's the move most introverted leaders miss. Use your calm to manage tension. When conflict arises, and it will, your steady presence becomes the stabilizing force. You don't escalate. You don't panic. You don't take sides immediately. You just stay calm. And that calm signals to everyone else that it's safe to work through this. Show people it's safe to disagree or share bad news. When someone brings you a problem, don't shoot the messenger. Thank them. I appreciate you bringing this to me early. When someone disagrees with you, don't get defensive. Get curious. Tell me more about why you see it that way. This creates psychological safety. And psychological safety is the foundation of high performance. Use steady tone and pace to de-escalate emotional conversations. When someone's upset, don't match their energy. Stay grounded. Speak slowly. Acknowledge their feelings without absorbing them. I hear that you're frustrated. Let's figure out what we can do about it. This turns conflicts into problem-solving sessions instead of blame games. The real models. Satya Nadella took over Microsoft when the culture was toxic. Internal politics, turf wars, ego battles. He didn't fix it with charisma or big speeches. He fixed it with empathy and listening. He shifted the culture toward learning and openness. He made it safe to admit mistakes. He emphasized growth over performance theater. And Microsoft's transformation under his leadership is one of the most remarkable turnarounds in corporate history. His model is simple. Listen first. Understand before you change direction. Make growth and curiosity team norms. You can do the same at your scale. You don't need to be running a Fortune 500 company. You just need to create a culture where people feel safe to learn, fail, and grow. Rosa Parks didn't give fiery speeches. She didn't rally crowds with charisma. She just refused to move. One quiet, principled act. And it inspired thousands of people to organize, protest, and fight for change. Her power came from inner conviction, not outer performance. Consistent, principled behavior attracts allies. People rally around someone who stands for something, even if they stand quietly. The lies you need to kill. 3 myths that keep introverted leaders from owning their relational power. Myth 1. Leaders must be the life of the room. No. Charisma can charm people, but it doesn't always sustain trust. Loudness can sometimes mask insecurity or lack of substance. What people actually need is safety and consistency. They need to know you'll be fair, honest, and present. That's what builds loyalty, not whether you're fun at parties. Myth 2. If you don't love crowds, you're bad with people. Wrong. Distinguish between crowd comfort and relational skill. Some of the best relationship builders hate big groups. They're just better in small, deep interactions. Reframe your preference for small groups as an asset. You're not avoiding people. You're choosing the settings where you can actually connect. Myth 3. Empathy makes you weak. Empathy gives you better data. When you understand what people are feeling and why, you make better decisions. You anticipate problems. You build loyalty. The risk isn't empathy. The risk is empathy without boundaries. When you absorb everyone's emotions and try to fix everything, you burn out. But when you combine empathy with clarity, when you understand people deeply and still hold them accountable, you get firm, kind leadership. That's not weak. That's powerful. Tactical moves that work. 3 small shifts that amplify your relational impact. First, prepare 1 key question per person before each one-on-one. Don't wing it. Think, what's the most important thing I could ask them today? Maybe it's about a project they're struggling with. Maybe it's about their long-term goals. Maybe it's just checking in on how they're doing. Use that question to unlock deeper conversation. Let their answer guide where the rest of the time goes. Second, use microfeedback often. Don't save feedback for annual reviews. Give quick, specific praise when you see something done well. That was a great way to handle that client call. I noticed how you stayed calm when they pushed back. Offer small course corrections early instead of big corrections later. I noticed the report was missing the risk section. Can we make sure that's in next time? Normalize feedback as a constant, not a rare event. This removes the drama and makes it easier for people to hear. Third, notice and include the quiet ones. Pay attention to who rarely speaks in meetings. They're probably like you, processing, thinking, waiting for the right moment that never comes. Invite them in. I'd love to hear your view on this. Make sure your team sees that all voices are valued, not just the loud ones. This creates a culture where depth is rewarded, not just speed. What winning looks like. At the basic level, you leave conversations feeling clearer, not depleted and confused. You have fewer misunderstandings and silent resentments. People find it easier to talk to you about everyday issues. At the excellent level, your team describes you as fair, approachable, and supportive. People bring you problems early instead of hiding them. Loyalty increases, turnover drops, performance improves. You become the kind of leader people actually want to work for. At the best level, you become known as a leader people want to work with. Your network quietly opens opportunities because of your reputation. Your ability to build trust multiplies your influence beyond your formal authority. You shape outcomes not because you have the biggest title, but because people trust you. When it breaks down, you'll make mistakes, you'll over-empathize and carry everyone's emotions home in your head. You'll feel responsible for fixing things that aren't yours to fix. When this happens, mentally separate understanding from owning. You can understand someone's stress without taking it on. You can care without carrying. You'll avoid hard feedback. You'll sugarcoat issues or avoid them entirely. Performance problems will linger and frustrate everyone. Fix this by connecting feedback to growth and care. I'm sharing this because I believe in you and I want you to succeed. Here's what needs to change. Direct but kind. And you'll undercommunicate expectations. People will be confused about what you really want. You'll become quietly disappointed while they feel blindsided. Fix this by writing and reviewing clear standards together, then revisit them regularly. Don't assume people know what you're thinking. Make it explicit. But even the strongest relationships can't save you if you're running yourself into the ground. Even the best team can't perform if their leader is burned out, resentful, or quietly checking out. That's the final piece most introverted leaders never solve. And it's what determines whether you can sustain this over years or whether you flame out in months. Chapter 8. Sustainable Success. You've been doing everything right, managing your energy, leading with calm, communicating clearly, building trust. Your career is moving forward. People respect you, projects are succeeding, and you're exhausted. Not the good kind of tired that comes from a hard day's work. The deep, bone-level exhaustion that whispers, I can't keep doing this. You're hitting your numbers, you're getting promoted, you're checking all the boxes, but somewhere along the way, you started chasing a version of success that doesn't actually fit you. Maybe it's the constant visibility. Maybe it's the relentless pace. Maybe it's the metrics you're being judged by, metrics that reward extroverted performance over introverted depth. Whatever it is, you're winning by someone else's scoreboard, and it's killing you. This chapter is about redefining success so you can sustain it. Not for a quarter, not for a year, for decades. You'll learn to design your own metrics, protect your energy over the long term, and build a career that compounds quietly instead of burning bright and fast. Because sustainable success isn't about working harder, it's about working in alignment with who you actually are. The trap of borrowed ambition. Let's start with the problem. You've been told what success looks like. Promotions, titles, visibility, constant growth, always on, always available, always climbing. And if you're ambitious, which you probably are, you've internalized these markers as your own goals. But here's what happens when you chase extrovert-flavored success as an introvert. You win, and it feels empty. You get the promotion, but the new role requires even more visibility and less depth. You hit the revenue target, but the celebration involves a loud party that drains you. You earn the recognition, but it comes with expectations to be on all the time. You're living on someone else's scoreboard, and every win just moves you further from what actually energizes you. The pressure to be always visible is unsustainable. You can fake it for a while, you can push through, but eventually your system rebels. You burn out, or worse, you numb out. You keep going through the motions, but the joy is gone. The meaning is gone. You're just surviving. And here's the cruel part. You blame yourself. You think, if I were stronger, I could handle this. But strength isn't the issue. Alignment is. You're trying to run someone else's race in shoes that don't fit. Introverts have unique burnout patterns. You don't flame out dramatically. You quietly push through exhaustion until you crash. You don't complain, you don't ask for help, you just keep going, getting quieter and more withdrawn until one day you can't anymore. And the crash isn't just physical, it's existential. You look at your life and think, how did I end up here? This isn't what I wanted. The fix isn't to work less, it's to redefine what winning means, in your own language, using your own metrics, building a version of success that respects your wiring instead of fighting it. What success actually looks like for you. So what does sustainable success look like for an introverted leader? It starts with choosing metrics you can actually control. Not titles, not applause, not how many people follow you on social media. Those are external validations. They're unstable. They depend on other people's opinions and organizational politics. They'll never satisfy you because they're not actually yours. Instead, focus on internal metrics, quality of decisions, depth of relationships, rate of learning, impact of your work, alignment with your values. These are things you can control, things you can measure, things that actually matter. Pick 3 success metrics, 1 for impact. Maybe it's the value of the decisions you make or the problems you solve. 1 for relationships. Maybe it's the trust and loyalty you build with your team. 1 for growth. Maybe it's how much you're learning or how your skills are compounding. Write down what good, excellent, and best look like for each. Then review them quarterly. As you evolve, your metrics will evolve. That's fine. The point is to have a scoreboard that's yours. Next, design routines that protect your energy over the long term. Not just this week, not just this month, over years. Build a basic weekly structure that respects your peaks and valleys. Include both challenge and recovery in your calendar. Don't just schedule work, schedule rest, schedule deep work, schedule solitude. Treat these as non-negotiable appointments with your future self. And here's the shift most people miss. Routines aren't cages, they're scaffolding for greatness. They free you from constant decision fatigue. They create predictability, which reduces stress. They let you show up at your best more often because you're not constantly improvising. Finally, plan your career in arcs, not just moves. Think in 3 to 5 year windows instead of only short-term jumps. Where do you want to be in 3 years? Not in terms of title, in terms of autonomy, mastery, and alignment. Do you want more control over your schedule? Do you want deeper expertise in a specific domain? Do you want work that aligns more closely with your values? Choose roles and projects that grow your strengths, not just your exposure. If a project will teach you something valuable or let you work in a way that fits you, take it. If it's just about visibility or politics, think twice. Aim for increasing autonomy, mastery, and alignment over time. That's what compounds. That's what lasts. The lies that keep you grinding. 3 myths that trap introverted leaders in unsustainable patterns. Myth 1. Hustle harder, rest later. This is poison. Relentless grind leads to diminishing returns. Your creativity drops, your judgment suffers, your relationships fray. Constant hustle doesn't make you more productive, it makes you worse at everything. Replace this with targeted intensity and intentional rest. Push hard when it matters, rest when you need to. Alternate between the two. That's how you sustain high performance over decades. Myth 2. If you slow down, you'll fall behind. Wrong. Reflection can speed up long-term progress. When you pause to think, you avoid mistakes that cost you months. You spot patterns that others miss. You make better decisions that compound over time. Many fast people are just running in circles. They're busy, but they're not progressing. Embrace strategic pauses as part of your advantage. Slow down to speed up. Myth 3. Leaders must be on 24/7. This belief creates unsustainable expectations. It destroys your ability to think deeply. It models unhealthy behavior for your team. And it's based on a lie that constant availability equals leadership. It doesn't. Boundaries model health. They show your team that rest is valued, not weakness. And here's the irony. Off time often creates your best insights. Your brain needs downtime to process, connect, and create. Protect it. How to actually build this. Here's how you make this real. Start by defining your top 3 success metrics. Write them down. Be specific. Quality of decisions is vague. Made 3 major decisions this quarter that were still the right call 6 months later is specific. Review these metrics weekly or monthly. Track patterns. Celebrate progress. Adjust as needed. Next, run a commitment audit. List all your recurring responsibilities and projects. Everything. Meetings, committees, side projects, obligations. Then mark each one as energizing, neutral, or draining. Be honest. Now look at the draining column. Which of these can you delegate, reduce, or drop over the next 3 to 6 months? Pick at least one. Eliminate it. Celebrate the subtraction. This isn't failure. This is focus. Then create a growth cycle plan. Don't try to push hard all the time. Alternate between push phases and consolidation phases. A push phase might be 3 months where you're taking on a stretch goal, learning something new, or driving a big initiative. A consolidation phase might be 2 months where you're building systems, resting and integrating what you learned. Define how long each phase lasts and what it focuses on. This prevents burnout and creates sustainable growth. Small moves, big shifts. 3 tactical habits that protect your long-term sustainability. First, use the 3-year test. Whenever your schedule starts to feel unsustainable, ask yourself, if I live like this for 3 years, where do I end up? If the answer is burned out, resentful, or disconnected from what matters, course correct now. Don't wait for the crash. Use this test to adjust your habits and commitments before they break you. Second, make a stop doing list, not a to-do list. a stop doing list. Identify habits, meetings, and tasks that drain more than they contribute. Commit to eliminating at least one thing each month. Maybe it's a recurring meeting that's become a waste of time. Maybe it's a commitment you took on out of guilt. Maybe it's a habit that no longer serves you. Stop it. Celebrate each subtraction as a win. Third, protect one deep work block per week. Schedule 60 to 120 minutes of uninterrupted focus time. Use it for your highest value thinking or creation work. Not email, not meetings, not administrative tasks. The work that actually moves the needle. Treat this like an unmovable appointment with your future self, because it is. What winning looks like. At the basic level, your weeks feel structured instead of random and overwhelming. You experience fewer energy crashes and emotional whiplash. You feel more present in work and life. You're not just surviving, you're actually living. At the excellent level, your responsibilities increase without a matching increase in stress. You see consistent progress toward goals that truly matter to you. You start turning down opportunities that don't fit your values or wiring. You stop saying yes out of guilt or fear. You start saying yes only to things that align. At the best level, your impact, freedom, and satisfaction grow together. You become a model of sustainable success for others. People look at you and think, that's what I want, not the burnout, not the hustle theater, that calm, steady growth. You look back and see a path you built, not one you stumbled into. And you realize you can keep going because you're not running on fumes. You're running on alignment. When it falls apart, you'll make mistakes. You'll slip back into people-pleasing. You'll say yes by default and overcrowd your calendar again. Your energy plan will collapse under others' demands. When this happens, revisit your metrics weekly. Ask yourself, does this commitment serve my goals or sabotage them? Be ruthless. Protect what matters. You'll also overcorrect into disengagement. You'll withdraw too much. You'll stop challenging yourself. Growth will stall and boredom will creep in. Fix this by always keeping 1 or 2 meaningful stretch goals active. Don't coast, but don't grind either. Find the middle. And you'll confuse comfort with sustainability. You'll mistake lack of stress for real fulfillment. You'll quietly drift instead of deliberately steering your path. Fix this by scheduling periodic reviews. Every quarter, ask yourself, am I growing or just coasting? Am I building something or just maintaining? Be honest. Adjust. But here's what all of this: the energy management, the quiet leadership, the deep thinking, the powerful communication, the relationships, the sustainability, here's what it all builds toward. A moment, a decision, a commitment. The moment when you stop apologizing for being quiet and start owning who you are. When you stop trying to fit someone else's mold and start leading your way. That's what the final chapter is about. Chapter 9, Own Your Voice. You're standing at a crossroads. Behind you is the old story. The one where you apologize for being quiet, where you try to lead like someone you're not, where you burn out chasing a version of success that never quite fits. Ahead of you is a different path. One where your introversion is a design feature, not a bug. One where your calm presence becomes your greatest asset. One where you lead your way. The question is simple. Which path will you take? This isn't rhetorical. This is the moment. You've read the frameworks. You've seen the strategies. You understand how energy mastery, quiet leadership, deep thinking, powerful communication, relational depth, and sustainable success all fit together. But understanding doesn't change anything. Action does. This final chapter is about commitment. It's about taking everything you've learned and turning it into a new identity. Not, I'm trying to be a better leader, but I am an introverted leader and I lead my way. That shift from trying to being is what makes everything else stick. What you've actually learned. Let's recap what you now know that most people never figure out. First, introversion is about energy, not defect. You recharge through solitude and depth. You process the world differently. That's not a flaw. It's your operating system. And when you design your life around it instead of fighting it, you unlock power that extroverts can't access. You've learned to track your energy, protect your focus windows, and build routines that respect your wiring. This isn't accommodation. it's optimization. Second, leadership is about creating direction, alignment, and commitment, not about being the loudest voice in the room. Noise without direction is just confusion. You've learned that calm presence, clear thinking, and consistent follow-through build more trust than charisma ever will. You measure yourself by clarity and impact now, not by volume or visibility. That's a fundamental shift in how you see your role. Third, your quiet strengths are core leadership tools: listening, reflection, depth, calm. These aren't things to hide or apologize for. They're your competitive advantages. You've learned to connect each strength to a leadership arena: listening in one-on-ones, reflection in decision-making, depth in strategy, calm in crisis. You're not trying to be well-rounded. You're leveraging what you're already good at. The playbook you now own. Here's what's different now. You have a playbook, not random tips. Each chapter gave you a framework you can return to whenever you feel lost. Energy Mastery showed you how to treat your battery as a strategic resource. When you're drained, you know why. When you need to show up strong, you know how to prepare. You're not guessing anymore. Quiet Leadership gave you a model that fits. You're not trying to be charismatic. You're being clear, consistent, and calm. You know how to anchor a room without dominating it. You know how to build trust through predictability, not performance. Deep thinking turned your reflective nature into a decision-making engine. You're not spiraling in your head. You're using frameworks, writing your reasoning, and moving from thought to action. You anticipate problems instead of just reacting to them. Powerful Communication showed you how to make your voice count without constant talking. You lead with listening. You prepare key points. You use writing as a primary channel. You're not waiting for the perfect moment anymore. You're creating it. People Power taught you that relationships are built in depth, not crowds. You've mastered one-on-ones. You've learned to create psychological safety. You've stopped judging yourself by extrovert standards and started building loyalty your way. Sustainable Success gave you permission to redefine winning. You're not chasing someone else's scoreboard. You're building a career that aligns with your values, uses your strengths, and respects your limits. You're playing the long game. You now have a system, and systems beat willpower every time. What this changes in your life. This isn't just about work. This changes your relationships. When you stop hiding behind silence and start using your listening skills intentionally, people feel seen. When you share more of your internal world instead of keeping it locked up, connections deepen. When you set clear boundaries without apology, resentment fades. You become someone people can trust, not because you're perfect, but because you're consistent, honest, and present. At work, you become known as calm, reliable, and clear-headed. You show up the same way every day. People relax around you because they know where you stand. They bring you their hardest problems because they trust your judgment. They follow you because you've earned it, not because you demanded it. At home, you stop bringing the exhaustion and resentment that comes from living out of alignment. You have energy left for the people who matter. You're not just surviving. You're actually present. What you can now achieve. Here's what you can do now that you couldn't do before. You can lead without faking extroversion. You can run meetings, manage projects, and guide teams in a way that feels natural. You can step into visible roles without feeling like an imposter. You can handle public moments with calm and preparation instead of dread. You're not performing. You're just being yourself at your best. You can make stronger, clearer decisions. You use your decision frameworks instead of overthinking or freezing. You anticipate problems instead of constantly reacting. You stand by your decisions with confidence because you've thought them through. And when you're wrong, you adjust without spiraling into self-doubt. You can shape your own career and impact. You choose roles and paths aligned with your strengths and values. You create opportunities by speaking, writing, and leading your way. You build a track record of quiet, undeniable results. And over time, those results compound into influence that speaks louder than any self-promotion ever could. The compounding effect. Here's the beautiful part. The more you practice these concepts, the easier they get. Not because the work gets simpler, because you get better. Your habits reduce friction. Energy logging becomes automatic. Planning becomes second nature. Reflection becomes a reflex. You feel less decision fatigue because your structures do part of the work. Good decisions compound while effort feels lighter. Your skills grow and feed each other. Better thinking leads to better speaking. Better speaking leads to better leading. Better leading creates more opportunities to practice. What once terrified you becomes just another day. Not because you're fearless, because you've done it enough times that it's familiar. And your identity shifts. When you see yourself as an introverted leader, actions align naturally. You stop wasting energy debating whether you belong at the table. You stop asking, "Am I allowed?" You start asking, "What's the next level?" That shift is everything. The model you can follow. Warren Buffett built Berkshire Hathaway into one of the world's most respected companies. Not through hype, not through constant media appearances, not through charisma, through reading, thinking, writing, and calm decision-making. He avoided the noise. He stuck to his lane. He let compound results speak for themselves. His daily routine is simple. He reads for hours. He thinks deeply about a small number of high-quality decisions. He writes annual letters that clarify his thinking. He says no to almost everything. He protects his time and energy like they're his most valuable assets. Because they are. You don't need to be running a Fortune 500 company to apply his model. You just need to recognize that you don't need to be flashy to be world-class. You can design a life where your best mental states are your daily norm. Quiet consistency over decades beats noisy intensity for a year. Every single time. Your first move. So what do you do now? You choose one arena to apply this book. Not everything, just one thing. Pick a single meeting, conversation, decision, or presentation coming up in the next week. Decide that this will be your first introverted leadership rep. Write down where you'll use the tools you've learned. How will you manage your energy before and after? What key points will you prepare? How will you listen first and summarize before deciding? What will you do to stay calm and grounded? Be specific. Then make a concrete 7-day plan. Block time in your calendar for preparation and recovery. Decide what you'll say, how you'll show up, and how you'll follow up. Commit to a short reflection afterward to capture what worked and what didn't. This isn't about perfection, it's about practice. And tell someone your intention. Share your plan with a trusted friend, peer, or mentor. Ask them to check in with you after you act. This moves you from wishful thinking to real action. Accountability works. Use it. The truth you need to hear. You don't need more confidence. You need to act. Confidence doesn't come before courage. It comes after. You feel scared, you do it anyway, and then only then you feel confident. Waiting for confidence is just another way to stay stuck. You don't need the perfect moment. You need today. Today is the only day you can actually use. Tomorrow is a concept. Today is real. What you do in the next 24 hours matters more than what you plan to do someday. And here's the truth that might sting. Staying small doesn't serve anyone. Not you, not your team, not the people who need what you have to offer. You've been telling yourself that staying quiet is humble, but it's not. It's safe. And safe isn't the same as right. Your ideas matter. Your values matter. Your presence matters. The world doesn't need another loud leader performing confidence they don't feel. The world needs more leaders who are calm, thoughtful, and real. Leaders who listen before they speak. Leaders who think before they decide. Leaders who build trust through consistency, not theatrics. That's you. You just need to own it. The new story starts now. So here's what you do. Right now, today, you tell yourself a new story. Not, I'm a quiet person trying to lead, but I am an introverted leader. I lead my way. Say it out loud. Write it down. Let it sink in. This isn't affirmation theater. This is identity integration. You're not trying to become something. You already are something. You're just finally acknowledging it from now. Then take one visible action in the next 24 hours that aligns with that identity. Speak up in a meeting. Send a clear, decisive email. Schedule a one-on-one you've been avoiding. Decline a commitment that doesn't fit your energy plan. It doesn't have to be big. It just has to be real. And when you do it, celebrate. Not because it was perfect, because you did it, because you chose action over waiting, because you stepped into the story where your quiet strength finally takes the lead. This is the beginning, not the end. You'll stumble, you'll doubt, you'll have days where you feel like you're back at square one. That's normal. That's part of growth. The difference is now you have a system to return to. Now you know the path. You're not alone in this. Millions of introverted leaders are figuring this out right now. Some are ahead of you, some are behind, but you're all walking the same path, the one where you stop apologizing for who you are and start leveraging it. The world needs your calm, your depth, your clarity, your quiet strength, not someday, now. So close this book, take a breath, and step forward. You're ready.